Oh my goodness. Well, I don't have to read much of my speech here because it's already been told. I am honored and quite overwhelmed to be the International Women's Day Award recipient this year. Thank you very, very much. When I told my family, they were of course very, very pleased. My sisters, however, just asked that they be recognized for their contribution to making me who I am today. Thank you, Anne and Bonnie. As mentioned, in the late 80s, I was asked to be part of Brock's SOAS committee, which is the Status of Women in Science committee. Up to that point, I had not really been aware of the need to encourage girls to stay in science. So here's a bit of history on how I came to understand the issues. I knew I wanted to be a teacher by the time I was in the second grade, when I was asked to help first graders with their printing. Then in those days, I just liked making red marks on their papers. Now, I love the light in a student's eyes when he or she begins to understand a concept. My dad was a PhD chemist at DuPont, so while I was growing up, much of our dinner table talk was about scientific concepts. He wanted all 5 of his children to study science. When it came time for me to decide what I wanted to study at college, I chose what was easiest for me, chemistry. My dad was a product of his time. He encouraged me to pursue my science studies, not because I could make advances in science, but so I could help my sons make the discoveries. That's the way things were then. He encouraged me to pursue my science studies, and since high school teaching was an acceptable job for a woman in the 60s, it was a bit unusual to teach science, but not unheard of. And so since I wanted to be a teacher anyway, my choice made us both happy. This does bring up a point that I want to make. I strongly believe that encouragement at home is very important in helping girls start and continue their studies in STEM. For example, I knew that math anxiety often starts in the 3rd grade with the teaching of the multiplication tables. When my daughter, who was in the 3rd grade, came home one day and said, "I'm stupid in math, Mom," my first reaction was to think, no daughter of mine is going to be stupid in math. Fortunately, I said instead, "What do you think? Why do you think you're stupid in math?" And she said, "Of course, because I can't do the multiplication tables fast." That's what what she thought about it. I assured her that doing math fast was not math, doing the multiplication tables was not math, and that we could practice each day. The result of that support was that she eventually became the apple of her calculus teacher's eye. My daughter is here today. Thank you, honey. I've never been aware of sexual discrimination towards me either. Perhaps that was because running the first-year chemistry labs was a staff position, and I wasn't threatening to break any glass ceilings. But I was horrified when a colleague of mine, Dr. Mary Frances Richardson, told me that her major professor at a Kentucky university warned her that although she was free to pursue a PhD in crystallography, she would never be hired as a member of the faculty of a U.S. university or be more than a lower-level employee in industry. Despite the advice, she completed her doctoral studies and, as predicted, had telephones slammed down in her ear after the department head said they already had their token woman. That was in the early 60s. Fortunately, Brock had the foresight to hire this remarkable educator who not only continued her research in the structure of crystals, but also won the International Case Award for her university teaching in the late 90s. She was a role model to many female students. Looking back over my career, I realize how lucky I was to have such positive mentors along the way, including my dad, my husband, and colleagues Dr. Richardson and Dr. Ian Brindle, with whom I worked for over 35 years. The Brock Chemistry Department allowed me to demonstrate labs part-time while I was raising my 4 kids, and then run those labs full-time when my family was older. When I joined the SOAS committee, the number of women entering Brock as freshmen in STEM was definitely lower than the number of men. And after much discussion, the committee decided to design a 3-day residency program for grade 12 girls, as you know, called Scientifically Yours. And this was to provide a fun university experience and exposure to 6 areas of science and math. All the departments in the Faculty of Science and Math, Psychology, and Applied Health Science designed experiments that could be done in 2 hours, and as much as possible, also provided female lab demonstrators as role models to run them. The girls stayed on campus for 3 days and 2 nights and experienced dorm rooms and dorm food. Not as big a drawback as you might think. One of the most important events, though, was a dinner with practicing female scientists, one at each of 12 tables that the girls interviewed and then introduced to the rest of the participants. The girls were able to hear about the career paths and lives of the invited scientists. As also mentioned, the first conference ran in 1990 with 40 girls. Over the years, we realized grade 11 was a better time for encouragement, since students could still choose grade 12 science courses before making university decisions. And about 5 years ago, we started admitting about 10% boys. I was against this change initially, as I thought the boys would inhibit the girls, but I was wrong. I have observed that girls these days have much greater self-confidence than they used to, and are generally not intimidated by the boys. In addition, this is an opportunity for us to encourage boys to respect and support females in our society. This popular conference has run continuously since, with between 60 and 100 girls participating each year, and 2020 is its 31st year. I designed the 3 chemistry projects, one element of which I had hoped to demonstrate here, called Flames and Explosions. But the rules for the casino state no open flames. Oh well. The number of girls entering the sciences has risen somewhat over the last 30 years, but not as much as we would have liked. Some disciplines, such as biology, women exceed the number of men's, but the number of women continuing in upper years continues to decrease. So women still need mentors and encouragement and advice on how to work in the sciences and still have a family life. Issues of equal pay for equal work are still problematic as women move higher in the hierarchies of industry and universities. Although Scientifically Yours is still near and dear to my heart, my involvement is primarily just helping on the 2 days that it now runs and being the MC of the Dinner with Scientists. The bulk of the huge job of organizing and running this conference for the last 10 years has been done by full-time lecturers and lab coordinators Christine Carpenter-Cleland and Dr. Baoling Bork, both of whom volunteer their time as co-chairs of the 20-member Scientifically Yours committee. I only coordinated the Scientifically Yours conference for 4 years, and I know how hard it is, and I am delighted and in awe of their continuing commitment. I failed retirement in 2006 when I was offered my dream job, that of tutoring first-year chemistry 10 hours a week and having Brock pay me. I still love doing that. Several years later, as you've been told, I joined CFUW, which is the Canadian Federation of University Women, which is a nonprofit national organization with clubs in every province, and which has the express purpose of improving the status of women and working to promote the education of women and girls. My activities for promoting women in science began to change. Instead of interacting directly with girls and being a role model, I now work to raise funds to help them continue their education. At first, I just arranged for checks to be presented to the graduating women in 12 area high schools who excelled in STEM studies. Then I was encouraged to step out of my comfort zone and become the current president of the St. Catherine's Club, which will celebrate its 100th birthday in 2021. This year, I am helping by including my home in our 46th annual house tour, which is our only major fundraising project. Several very knowledgeable CFUW members are at the table at the back, providing information about this event, which will run on Sunday, May 3rd. They also have tickets for sale. I hope you will save the date. Scientifically Yours is one of the programs being supported by the house tour proceeds. Again, thank you very much for giving me this award.